Hey everybody, Ronray here, and today I'm going to showcase how you can become Atziri for 20 divines or less. Will be the first build of the Cosplay Build series, when we will try to recreate the builds resembling the popular Path of Exile Bosses. Use their abilities and try to copy their unique features as well, sometimes even cosplaying as one of them. Atziri is the first one, and GGG has provided a really good tool to copy her skill set. A unique stuff called Atziri's rule. When we started it, we expected nothing, but the build itself turned out pretty viable and really fun to play. As you can see, it can be a decent mapper which can cover the screen with cool AOE explosions, which can even scare you. I was always trying to dodge my own hits while we were filming all of this. And when fighting Atziri herself, you can never know which hit is yours. It can also utilize the lightning warp to move around pretty quickly and can be good for such stuff as boss rush or speed clearing. Bosses also could be done on a budget, since it is mostly an ignite build and you can run around while waiting for enemies of your rule to burn in the flame of judgment. With higher investment, I think even uber bosses are possible. Yet for now we just stopped at the basic version of the build, which can do a lot of different content nonetheless, and can showcase all the unique features Atziri possesses. On a pretty accessible budget. You can try the build as a unique one for the events, early game starter since you don't really need a 6-link for it, or just a fun mapper which can transition to other ignite builds later on. So, let's look further into the build itself. So, talking about the build, it is mostly based on the Atziri's rule unique stuff, which gives us a unique skill, Queen's Demand. It can give us a chance to cast Flames of Judgment or Storm of Judgment. So this is pretty much a Storm of Judgment, and this is Flames of Judgment. So we can cast them pretty fast, with really good AOE, if we are using the right Ascendancy. That way they will iterate first storms and flame, and go on and on. So this is the base part of the build and everything else was built around it. That way we can mimic the skills that Atziri uses and can pretty much cosplay really good. Also, while you are using Atziri rule, you can just put all your support gems into the stuff itself and you don't need any links for them to work. So you can just put all your 6 gems right into Atziri rule and this will be it. That way it can work pretty nice even on a budget. So talking about the unique mechanics, we will need to stack less skill effect duration almost everywhere possible, since as you can already see, there's a little delay between the cast and the hit itself. It's already with the stacked skill effect duration. If I will get rid of most of my gems and my amulet here, as you can see, it will be really slow. So it will take a lot of time for a skill to hit. And it's definitely unacceptable since it will not be smooth enough to play. But if we are using everything right, it will be much faster and much more comfortable. That way, as you can see, it's like 2 or maybe even 3 times faster and the skill itself working. So less skill effect duration is really important right here. Talking about the build itself, except Atziri rule, we will also need a set of unique items as well. First we will need Skin of the Lord's simple robe. That way we can get 2 levels of socketed gems. This is a really good item since we can just put our auras into the gem itself. That way we can use Enlighten 3 and it will get 2 levels bonuses. So we will be able to fit in all the auras. Just make sure that all auras that you are placing in the Skin of the Lords are pretty much corrupted, since it's the rule. And the perfect skill that we can get from the Skin of the Lords should be Elemental Overload. That way we can avoid losing points going there, and it's pretty much a good option. We also will get 100% increase in global defenses, which will boost our armor, our evasion, and will give us a little energy shield here and there. The second really important item would be Warm Timepiece. This is a unique amulet, which will give us 20% reduced skill effect duration at the maximum. When we are playing the Atziri's build, we need to reduce skill effect duration as far as possible. So Warp Timepiece is a perfect thing for it. It will give us movement speed so we can run around faster. It will give us cast speed, so our cast speed will be faster and we can use our skills that way. And reduce skill effect duration is just perfect, since that way our skills will just hit faster and the build will feel much more smooth. So Warp Timepiece is certainly recommended for all iterations of Atziri's build. Moving forward, I'm also using Polaric Devastation in the left ring slot to cover enemies in Ash, get increased duration of ailments, some resistances and elemental damage. That's like a really good ring for Ignite builds, and Atziri is pretty much an Ignite build as well. So that way you can just get Polaric Devastation for a little chaoses, and it will be a really good ring moving forward. The second ring is Replica's Ember Wake. It will reduce Ignite duration on enemies by 90%, but Ignites will deal damage faster. When you are using Replica's Ember Wake, it's also really important to make sure that you have enough Ignite duration, that even after reduced Ignite duration, you will still have at least 1 or 2 seconds of Ignite duration on the enemies. We are mostly using our cluster jewels for it, so please use Replica's Ember Wake only together with the cluster jewels. Otherwise, the ring is just perfect for the build, and make sure to get it as fast as possible right after clusters. And our last unique is Darkness Enthroned. This Stygian-wise belt is really good, since it costs only 1 or maybe 2 divines, depends on the percentage, and it can give a lot of stats, a lot of resistances and a lot of health. The build currently really needs all of them for really low budget, so it's a perfect option right here. You can get any Darkness Enthroned with increased effect of Socketed Abyss jewels about 95 and higher. You will need to get 2 jewels inside it with strength, life and elemental resistances. Everything else is not that important, so just 3 stats. So it will be pretty simple. Side jewels can cost like 1 or 1.5 divines, but it's pretty much already included in the budget, so just get them. So talking about our rares, the thing is pretty simple. First we start with the boots. Right here we just need suppress spell damage, maximum life and 2 resistances. Perfectly we just need a lot of movement speed, so anything higher than 25 will be pretty much alright. You can also use the craft with increased movement speed and increased movement speed if you haven't been hit recently, which is pretty nice as well. And as implicits you will need to roll Ignite Inflict, deal damage faster, and drop Scorched Ground while moving less than 2 seconds. Scorched Ground will pretty much lower the resistances of enemies that's pretty much standing on it, and it's a really good bonus for an Ignite build. And Ignite Inflict, deal damage faster, just a really strong thing, so get it as fast as possible. Talking about the gloves, we just need Dexterity, suppress spell damage, together with maximum life and any resistance. And the base will probably be evasion based. As an implicit, we will need to get fire damage over time multiplier and inflict fire explosion hit, applying additional minus to fire resistance. So inflict the fire explosion hit is probably the most important part of the build, since it stacks with a lot of our masteries and with our Ascendancy as well. So try to get this one as fast as possible and always make sure that you have it. So the most expensive item in our build will be a helmet. I try to dance around this particular concept but overall we just need to get helmet for something between 5 and 7 divines for build to be even better and for damage to be higher. It should have ignite you inflict deal damage faster, and perfectly nearby enemies have minus to fire resistances. And if you can get it, physical damage from hits taken as fire. This could be a craft as well, but it is what it is. Such helmet could be a little expensive, but that's pretty much what we are talking about here, and it will give us about 30% of the damage, which is really good for an ignite build. So if you can afford it, try to get this helmet and you will definitely feel better. So talking about the Ascendancy, since we are on ignite build, this one is pretty simple. The first thing that you need to get is Shaper of Flames. It will give us about 30% of additional damage and it will make all of our hits ignite. That's pretty important since Storm of Judgment is pretty much doing lightning damage and will not ignite without the Shaper of Flames. Try to get this one first. The second one should be Mastermind of Discord. This is a pretty good bonus since we will have much stronger exposure and it works pretty good. The third one should be Heart of Destruction. It will give us a lot of area of effect. And it feels really good with the Atziri build when you can cover half the screen with your huge explosions. And it will also give us Convergence and additional damage boost when we are hitting unique enemies. So it's a really nice one. And the last one should be Shaper of Storms. That way we can get at least some of the additional damage, since all of our hits will shock. If you think the damage is pretty much enough, you can get Bastion of Elements instead of the Shaper of Storms for better survivability. But most of the time I just felt it's working even without it. The choice is pretty much yours at this point. So, talking about the Pantheon, it's pretty simple. For mapping, we need to use Soul of Lunaris to get additional physical damage reduction for each nearby enemy, and also a little movement speed bonus. For bosses, we need to use Soul of Solaris, since it gives a lot of bonuses when there's only one enemy nearby. And the minor god should be Soul of Grootful for additional physical damage reduction for each hit we've taken up recently, since it's a pretty good bonus for almost any build. So talking about our 3, we have a lot of options here. We are starting as a beach, pretty much moving there, and we need to access both this cluster jewel zone and this cluster jewel zone. We also will need to take all the reservation efficiency and sovereignty right here, together with influence right here as well. The unique thing that you should pay attention to is Whispers of Doom, since we need this one to apply an additional curse. We also need Instinct right here to get suppress spell damage, and chance to suppress spell damage is lucky is an amazing mastery for really low amount of points. I'm also using the Honored Tattoo of the Berserker for the onslaught, and I'm using both Holy Fire and Searing Heat to get fire damage up. As a note on the amulet, we are using Charisma, and I will probably showcase it a little later again. The last but not the least is Eldritch Battery. This one is pretty important, since that way we can use our energy shield to cast our skills. Since we have almost all mana reserved, only one mana is unreserved, Eldritch Battery is pretty much mandatory for the build to operate and to feel good. It is also pretty important to get the good Watcher's Eye. So with the Watcher's Eye, we can get 10% of maximum mana as extra maximum energy shield, while affected by clarity. That way we will get a lot of additional energy shield and we will be able to cast our skills without any issue. You can also get any damaging bonuses too, mostly based on malevolence, but those could be pretty expensive, so I'm just using this one, which costs only a few divides. Talking about cluster jewels, We will need a big one here with Burning Bright, the Rain is Lesson and Prismatic Heart. Perfectly, you need to have attributes on it, but even without it, it's pretty much alright. So we are taking Burning Bright for area of effect and burning damage. The Rain is Lesson. For Leech, our Leech never will be really big, but it's a cute little bonus here and there, so I pretty much prefer to have it. And the last thing is Prismatic Heart for elemental resistances and increase elemental damage. And the second big cluster jewel right here contains Prismatic Heart, Smoke Remains and Widespread Destruction. We are not taking Widespread Destruction, but Smoking Remains and Prismatic Heart both are pretty good for the build. Those should cost a few divines, but we only need 2 of them, so it's pretty much alright. We're also using the medium cluster jewels, mostly with Circle Oblivion and Flow of Life. Flow of Life give us a lot of regenerating life, and the life itself will also give a few percentage of damage as well. And the Circling Oblivion is really important, since it gives us increased duration of ailments on enemies. That way we can stack the duration of the ignite further to lower it later with Replica's Ember Wake. This is pretty important, so make sure you have at least 2 of Circling Oblivions. The second thing here is Brush with Death. So with this medium cluster jewel we are using just Flow of Life and Brush with Death instead of Circle Oblivion. It will give us a chance to recover life on kill, which I think is really good for the build. And the damage over time multiplier is a really good thing. Our small cluster jewel is pretty simple as well. It's introspection and a lot of additional bonuses, like all attributes, dexterity and maximum life. Introspection itself is a really nice thing. It can give us a lot of additional bonuses, like Survivability, about 5% of damage, and it's really nice. And we need Reservation Efficiency Small Masteries right here to get our mana in line. So make sure you will get this one, since it don't have added small passive skills, has increased effect. It should cost not a lot, about like 100 chaoses or something in between. And in all of the other slots we are using something like this. It's jewels with mostly fire damage over time multiplier, increased maximum life, damage and ailments, deal damage faster, and some additional bonus like intelligence or something like this. It's the same right here, where you can stack increased mana reservation efficiency of skills again, if you have the opportunity to it. And this one like burning damage and damage over time multiplier. So any of them should pretty much work. Make sure you will get clusters as fast as possible, since the build feels much better with cluster jewels, both large ones and medium ones. And we don't have that much budget to kind of throw around. So to find and check all the 3, you can pretty much check the link in the pinned comment or in the video description, where I pretty much use Path of Building to showcase the build. You can check the main version and like really low budget version, probably under 5 divines. Both of them are pretty much playable, but you still will need cluster jewels for them to feel good. Talking about gems, the thing itself is pretty simple. We just need to put supports into the Atziri rule. We don't need any connections on anything else. And we mostly need supports for the ignite. So we are using Deadly Ailment support, Perfectly Awakened one. We are using less duration, which is pretty important for skill to feel good. We are using Awakened Burning Damage, since we are pretty much an ignite build. We are using Awakened Swift Affliction, both for less duration and damage over time. We are using Cruelty, since it's a pretty good buff, and we are hitting a lot. And Awaken and Bound Ailments, since it stacks really good with Ember Wake. We just use Skin of the Lords for auras, which is pretty simple. We are using Vitality, perfectly around level 16, we are using Enlightening. I'm using the one at level 3, since the build is pretty much on a budget. And it will be level 5 because of the thing itself. So the next thing will be Malevolence, Determination, Grace, and Anger. So our damage generation auras is Anger and Malevolence, and they use Determination and Grace to pretty much survive better, together with Vitality. At Helmet, they're using Elemental Weakness and Flammability together with Arcanist Brand. You can also use Inspiration here, but it's not really important, since we have a lot of Energy Shield to cast our abilities. At the boots, we are using Molten Shell together with cast when damage taken. We are using Clarity and Arrogance, so that way we'll get an Energy Shield boost. And at the glass, we are using Phantasmal Lightning Warp together with faster casting, less duration, and swift affliction. That way we can use Lightning Warp pretty fast, and it's almost instant. So the build itself could be really good at mapping. That's pretty much it in terms of the gems, and the only position that you can properly change is Inspiration Support right here. So, it was a Atziri Ignite build. We had a lot of fun filming this, and the build turned much better than expected as well. Thank you for watching, and I hope you will like our further exploration into Cosplay Build series. Like this video and subscribe to the channel for more Path of Exile content, and see you next time.